Fascinated to get your thoughts on this game. It was an interesting one in so many ways. First of all, just give us your overall feeling about the group now. We're obviously not dead, but I guess as the the euphoria of the equaliser ebbs away, it's hard to shake that feeling. That's just a blow. And Hallgrimsson actually on the night in the press conference, he was not euphoric. I think he was well aware, even from the off, this is a bad night ultimately.
Yeah, I think you even saw that from the reaction of the players in terms of the excitement of getting that late equaliser. But as soon as that final whistle come, you didn't see any of the lads really celebrating. I think they knew that they'd identified how important it was to get the 3 points on that home game. But the reaction initially was one, certainly at half-time, of dejection, really. Just couldn't understand how bad we could be in a first-half performance like that. Utter relief then at the final whistle, and then I think then the mood kind of changes a little bit because you're angry with how it's gone. You feel that so much emphasis, rightly so, was placed on this first game, and to perform the way we did in that first half was just, it was so frustrating, Joe, because of the fact that we all got sucked into the build-up in terms of how positive it was, and I genuinely felt quite good about going into this campaign for a number of reasons. I think one, the structure of the competition in terms of the fact it's in a 10-week period. I think that suited us. I felt we could have caught a lot of the teams cold. I think autumn is our best time as players, as opposed to those summer qualifiers we have where our players are out on their feet. I think in the autumn time now, especially, is that you've had a good rest over the summer. You've got your pre-season work done, and you're virtually hitting match fitness now. So I thought, perfect. I thought the energy, the atmosphere at the ground was perfect. I thought this is going to be so difficult for Hungary to cope with. And yet the opening 20 minutes, where I felt we put them under so much pressure, it was actually us at sixes and sevens that were all over the place. And after 20 minutes, 22 minutes to be exact, we should have been 3-0 down.
Yeah. Give us your defensive take on the 2 goals, first of all, if you could.
Really poor. In terms of that, of course, any goal you're able to dissect it as such. But the first goal, I'm looking at, we've got 11 players in our defensive third. We still don't do enough to stop the cross coming in. Those 11 players in and around that danger area, then so you win the first contact, not a particularly great header by Doherty. Then you're looking for your team, because we've got the numbers around to deal with the second phase of it, the knockdowns. And when we don't, we give away such an early goal like that. It's such as to concede a goal like that when you've got all your 11 players back in the defensive third is not good enough. But then for the second goal, I'm thinking this is just dreadful. It's such a poor corner to give away. It's sloppy. The ball comes into the box, decent delivery enough, but no real physicality in there to stop the header, to attack it. Collins and Doherty culpable there. But mainly the biggest concern for me certainly was that it could have been a third goal in 22 minutes when Styles had that chance at the edge of the box. Now, we've been told all in the build-up to this, Paddy McCarthy, the coach, has highlighted that our 2 central midfielders, they know they have to protect that number 10 area. We've been culpable for it so often over the last few campaigns, giving away goals on the edge of our box. But from a long punt from the goalkeeper, Collins doesn't win the first header. Our 2 covering defenders don't pick up the knockdown, and then the ball's played wide. Doherty goes out. It's a simple pass into the box. Collins allows his man to turn, get his head up and look around to see where the options are. And the pass is made to Styles' edge of the box. And but for luck, he slices it just wide of the goal. Yeah. Cullen, Knight, nowhere to be seen. And I'm looking at him thinking, where is the work? Where's the actual defensive structure? And I'm looking at him thinking, and I bought into all of it in terms of like, this, we're going to simplify our play. We're going to be difficult to beat. We're going to adopt this kind of put them under pressure type of tactic. I didn't see any of that. And for that first opening 20 minutes, I couldn't believe how comfortable Hungary were just passing the ball about. We got in our shape. Our distances were terrible in terms of engaging, trying to put them under pressure. And they just felt so comfortable 20 minutes into the first game of a World Cup qualifying at a packed Lansdowne. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Doherty's getting particular flack. Say for the first goal, for instance, people don't like that. And it's a Matt Doherty thing. You know, he just is that kind of languid style, and I do it at my own pace. And, you know, he's a bit of it, like he does a hop and a skip almost as he's making his way back into the defensive line. Whereas Adara O'Shea is not looking for style points. He's just desperate and getting back out, you feel. Do you hold Doherty especially culpable for not joining that defensive line more quickly? Because the way you talk about it, it's far bigger than just him.
Yeah, I know, absolutely it is. And I think that, he's made the header. So his momentum in terms of heading the ball is going to be about 4 or 5 yards behind them.
Yeah.
Listen, in an ideal world, you probably shout to your covering or your defenders next to you, I can't get out quick enough with you. Hold it back for me. Wait for me to come with you.
Okay.
I don't think any of that was done. I don't really feel that Collins and O'Shea coming out squeezing, you would be looking to do that, but they've left the defender behind. And that I wouldn't necessarily put it down on Doherty for that particular goal. No, I wouldn't just be looking to isolate him on it. No.
Okay, interesting. That's 8 and 9 games now that Ireland have gone behind first.
Yeah.
Law of averages, a team like Ireland are going to go behind several times first across, a random 10 matches. But 8 and 9 obviously is quite stark. Hallgrimsson said maybe there's a psychological aspect to this. Do you think there is something psychological here?
I do think there is. I'm not sure if it's about conceding, but I kind of highlighted a little piece in the Independent in terms of my review of the game, in that I think because they're so desperate to do well, the players, I don't think they're coping with it emotionally in terms of just how desperate they are to do well. And maybe that suggests something about opening periods where you saw the benefit, Joe, and I've experienced it, of the Lansdowne crowd in terms of late on in that game and like literally sucking the ball into the net. That's the brilliant side of it. But the first part of a game can be quite crippling in terms of lads where they're so desperate to do well, they're not able to detach themselves away from the emotion of the crowd, the occasion, where they just have to be cold, cool and calculated. And I think at times, I certainly experienced this as a young player. I learned from playing for the 21s is that it wasn't for me to sing the anthem. I couldn't cope emotionally with singing the anthem because I would nearly be in tears. It was that emotional for me. I couldn't gather myself then for the start of the game. So quite often for the anthem or for the team photo just before the game kicks off, more often than not, I've got my eyes closed, just trying to get in the zone, not get affected by it. Now, Heimir suggested at the beginning of the game that the big job for him and his coaching staff is to calm the players down in terms of trying to get them ready for the emotion of it. Well, he didn't do that. He clearly didn't do that. If that's what he says he wants to do, he didn't. Because the start was so unrecognisable from so many aspects, where even like, say, for example, our new leaders in Collins and Cullen, in terms of kind of taking over the mantra from Seamus Coleman, they were unrecognisable from the players that I'm seeing week in, week out in that opening half. Like Nathan Collins being so dominant aerial, crisp passing. We saw none of that. He lost so many first contact headers. Cullen really has that authority in midfield, that controlling, calm authority. Didn't see any of that as well. Now, they're talking about them being leaders, but it's not about talking about, it's about showing it, leading by example on the pitch. And they just didn't do that. So there may be something that in their desire to do so well, which I would never question at all, because I can see it. They are desperate to do well for Ireland, but I think they need to kind of like detach themselves a little bit from it and be a bit more professional in their thinking in terms of just focus on the game, where ultimately that's where they're going to be judged.
It's interesting. I was there. It was an amazing atmosphere.
Yeah, it was. And that's why it's so frustrating, because you knew as that hungry, and I've seen it when you're in the tunnel with these teams, when you're at Lansdowne, and I'm talking about iconic teams as well. And you can see that they're so experienced, these players, but they're looking around thinking, oh man, this is going to be hard. This is going to be so hard. And we just let them off the hook. That first 20 minutes was just... And when we conceded that second goal, you then saw Heimir, the camera panned on him, and you could lip read him. He was saying, get focused. And I'm thinking, the horse has bolted. This is 20 minutes into the game. Hungary have had 70% possession, 20 minutes into our first home game, with the crowd absolutely jumping. It's just not acceptable.
Yeah, it was so striking, that first half hour. I mean, you said walk in the park, like... So Szoboszlai is and Rossi talked about it post-match. He said, because it was, you always get more of an insight when the other journalists are asking questions of their national team. So they had said, Marco, that's the second time rather that Szoboszlai has played in that number 6 position as opposed to the free role. Because pre-game everyone's saying, oh, Szoboszlai, free role, he'll go where he wants. They were saying second time he's played number 6, didn't go well the first time. How did you feel it went tonight? And he said, went great. We've been telling him for 3 years he's going to be world class number 6. So it was Szoboszlai and Callum Styles as the 2, and then in front of them Alex Toth and Roland Salai. So they had that 4.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was just like wherever Knight and Cullen, heads on swivels, just couldn't get near them. It was just angles everywhere. I mean, I couldn't understand how we felt so outnumbered in that first half.
Yeah, but ultimately, like we suggested there. If you don't get close enough to the first pass, they get their head up and they can find the space. And you're right there about Szoboszlai, because we do think of him as this number 10 and this goal threat, but look how good he's been at right back for Liverpool. So he knows what to do in those defensive situations. He's been incredible. But you're right, in terms of Cullen and Knight, and that was my frustration in terms of the setup, is that in that desire to put a high press on and put them under pressure, Knight and Cullen, and I couldn't believe that Cullen did it. We've seen it a lot with Knight. They just keep jumping out of midfield to try and get the press on. Don't get their head down of the opposition. So they just pass back into that position. You think about that header that Varga has. He has to score. That's from Cullen just jumping out of midfield when we're safe. They pass it into space behind him. Suddenly they go from midfield out to left wing, put a basic ball in, and Varga should score. It's a free header. Cullens is under the ball. He heads it completely, gets it all wrong, even though he doesn't even have to jump. And that happens so often, where those two central midfielders would jump out trying to get the press on, don't get there, and then we're just so vulnerable. And I'm looking at him thinking, whether or not the centre-halves can be saying, don't vacate that space. If I can't close the distance, if I can't go with you behind and close up that 10 area, then you can't go. And we just seem to do that so often in the game. It's so frustrating to watch. And I'm looking at it thinking, we've heard so much about Heimir saying we'll be organised. That's the thing. We'll be the best organised team. We'll be the best at set piece. And I'm thinking, you're not organised, because clearly you're not. And we have this kind of hybrid system that we're playing, where in our build-up play, it's that three at the back, Doherty touching as that third centre back, and then we play that box in midfield. And I'm thinking, okay, I understand the kind of thought process behind it in terms of getting Azaz and Smodics on the ball, but if you keep hitting those kind of floaty, long diags, you're totally missing out these guys. Why are you setting up that way if you're not going to try and play into them? And the rare occasion that we kind of did play balls forward into those guys, remember that ball from O'Shea at centre-back, great ball into Ferguson. It's a brilliant bit of centre-forward play that makes you think, you give that ball to him more often, you're going to see he chests it, he drives across the centre-forward, gets great contact on the strike, and it's a good save. And you're thinking, that's what I want to kind of see. And he talks about going back to basics. And I'm looking at that game in that first half, because that's where I focus primarily on. Because, listen, it was a great recovery in terms of coming from 2-0 down. I mean, there's context to that. It's a dreadful mistake by the goalkeeper to get us back in it. Then they get nervous, and then they give away a stupid foul to get sent off. And suddenly we've got the momentum. But the first half is the one that you need to dissect. And I just saw so many issues there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we'll come to the second half, and they deserve genuine appreciation for the way they battled. You know, a team so used to losing and 2-0 down, and they think it's going to go a certain way, like really commendable fight back. And that gives you a crumb of comfort as you head towards the rest of the campaign. Because there were just so many problems out of possession. We'll come to us with the ball in a second, but just that first, we didn't have the ball for the first half hour. I had mentioned something on the podcast post-match on Saturday, which again, I'd love your perspective on. And this is one example of the 10 different problems they're causing us, right? So they're 5-4-1 out of possession and really comfortable. And then when they get the ball, they push on Bolla, who had dropped to right wing back, I suppose, but he pushes on to Manning, and then Nego pushes out to right back. Bolla pushes on to Doherty, who's Ireland's left back, and then Nego goes to right back, and he's got Manning. And so that's a 2v2, and that's fine. But Alex Toth then, who's only 19, but there was an intelligence to him. What he started doing was, okay, 2v2 down Ireland's left-hand side. I'm going to drift out here from midfield. And I could see a few times between Knight and Azaz, they're like, you, me, you.
Yeah,
like,
well, listen.
And no one goes. And Toth, ball fizzed into Toth. And suddenly it's a 3v2 down our left-hand side. But this happened 2, 3, 4, 5 times, to a point where I was even thinking, Hallgrimsson, someone get hold of this. Yeah,
but do you know what? Even when you're describing that, you're so accurate in terms of your pointing. Because there was so much of this pointing by the players, like come over, you come. And I'm thinking, if you're doing that as a player, you don't know what you're doing.
Because Knight, to your point, Knight didn't necessarily want to vacate midfield. I was like, I don't want to, And then Azaz, are you coming? But then Azaz thinking, I'm trying to press up. So they actually did. They were just like, whoa, what's going on around us here?
Yeah, it's so true there in terms of, and when you see players, and I'll make that point again, is that when you see players pointing and having to do all that with all their arms, it's because it's not working, or something's phased them. They're not quite got their distances right and stuff like that. And you're right, that's where you do need your kind of senior players, like Collins is the captain, even though he's only 24. But Cullen, especially in midfield, where you just got to manage that situation for 3 or 4 minutes. You just got to tighten up a little bit and just say, okay, let them kind of have it there for a little bit. Let's just adjust in a good position, and then we'll go on a front foot, go hunting when we're in set. Just work out what's happening. And sometimes in the chaos of a game, you think you're not able to do that. But you are. You absolutely are at this level. You have to be. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
Now, we're saying about that, and we've heard so much in this week about they've got so many lads who are captains of their clubs. And we had that in our generation. But ultimately, what that means, for me, a captain is about problem solving. It's not necessarily being a cheerleader and like, yeah, come on, lads, and clapping and all this type of rubbish. It's about problem solving. And we didn't have anyone anywhere near. And none of those players looked like the players we saw at their club levels, apart from Kelleher in goal. He was the only one who he's composed club form, bring it to the international game that way. He's the only one, and that can't happen.
No, it's the inverse of your day, isn't it? Guys having tough time at club level and then Dublin, green jersey.
Yeah, I do think that the kind of like the green jersey, certainly when in my squad days, it felt like it elevated players from like troubled times in club level, but it seems to be doing the opposite with this group of players. To the extent that you're thinking, is it too big a weight to carry? I don't know. That's maybe a kind of off the cuff flippant comment, but you are looking at it and thinking, solve this problem. This is 20. This is not away. This is not 20 minutes away. This is 20 minutes at home.
Yeah, because I wondered, I'd love to ask them, I don't know, did Szoboszlai, because again, it was all free roll, number 10, he'll go where he wants. I wonder if all week, like Knight and Cullen, they were being drilled like Szoboszlai, he's going to be in your area, you got to look after him. And suddenly he's like a quarterback. And, you know, it was the first 5 minutes, gee, this is interesting. Is he going to keep dropping back? Oh, he is.
Yeah.
And 15 minutes in, I was kind of thinking, should Evan Ferguson or Azaz or so should someone just go and smash him if he's going to keep taking the ball out the centre halves?
Oh, that is attritional there, like what you're saying.
But that's what it calls for.
You've got to do something to influence the game, whether or not it's a crunching tackle. We've seen it over the years. An iconic Irish crunching tackle that sets the tone. Even if you think about that famous win against Holland, I don't know, who was it? Was it Roy or Kari? I don't know. Who done a crunching tackle?
Roy on Overmars, and even not smash him, just stop letting him get the ball with 15 yards circle around him.
Well, that's exactly it. Close the space. And I know we've seen scenarios where we've seen kind of lower ranked teams than us have far too much ball over the years at Lansdowne. We're thinking, but I didn't think it would be the case with this group of players and this manager. And I'm looking at them thinking, Hungary, like, yeah, Lansdowne is a lovely place to play when you've got 15 yards and you can get your head up. The crowd, as much as they're loud and vocal, don't really can't affect you. And I'm looking at them thinking, and it was always that kind of like hesitancies, like, shall I go? Oh, I don't know. Shall I protect the space? What are you doing? Should we? And it was just, I felt that going into that, all that these kind of conflicting messages that we've had over the fact that we've had three managers in a short space of time, when you think of John O'Shea, would be ironed out. That no, this is one way we're going to play. We're going back to basics as such. And it just looked like it was so like all over the shop. It just did not look clear at all.
Because you used the key word there, hesitancy, because I have no doubt, back to your point about how much these players want it.
No doubt in my mind about that.
So it wasn't like, oh, Szoboszlai has the ball, I'm not bothered closing him down. It was like, it was what, and if you're hesitant, you can't close with authority, I presume. Yeah,
well, they're desperate to make the challenges. All of them want to do that, and they know what, you think about a challenge now that would have like, took the ball and took the man, the crowd would have been absolutely roaring out, as it was anyway. I mean, the crowd were unbelievable. I thought their reaction at halftime was incredible. There was no really, I didn't feel that they were booing or anything like that.
There were a few grumbles.
Yeah, but I thought it could have been a collective on the back of the fact that it looked like the World Cup dream was over at half-time, first game. But stayed with the team, drove them on, unbelievable atmosphere. Felt like it was sucking the ball into the net late on. But I just looked at it and I thought, it was just so disappointing and maddening, really, that performance in the first half, because I'm thinking, where are you lads, man? Do you know how important it is? You keep telling us how important this game is and how ready you are, and nothing could be further from the truth.
So that was us without the ball. With the ball then... do you know what's funny, actually? Sorry, this may be an interesting way to start the chat with the ball. I could be the only one who thought this. And UEFA give out the sheets at the stadium pre-game and notoriously they get formations wrong. That's just the way it is. And so I looked at the 11 and I thought, wrongly, the formation was, he's gone with Jacob Bryan, Collins and O'Shea as a back three. He's got Manning and Doherty to get at both flanks, Cullen and Knight, Azaz, Smodix and Ferguson. And I thought, and I was like, I like that team. I think that's interesting. I get the whole three stay back and Robbie Brady goes forward, or in the case of Saturday, three stay back and Jacob Bryan goes forward. I don't know though. Like, it meant nothing happens down our left. Like, Doherty just sat at home. Did he pick the right team, or where are you on this?
No, my thoughts were going into it was Scales playing at left back, something like that, and for the added bonus of having the physicality in both boxes in terms of, you know, really putting people under pressure. I think both Scales and O'Brien are so comfortable on their outside, playing in fullback areas. I've no issues with it. Even if they wanted to go O'Shea in one of them, I've no problem with any of that back four in terms of how comfortable they are. But if you think about Doherty in terms of his best time in the Premier League, at one stage he was one of the best wing backs in the league. He absolutely was in that. So why not play him in that position? And you've got O'Brien, who's like such a modern day centre half in terms of big, strong, but mobile, can cope with those fullback positions if he's dragged out there. So don't overcomplicate it. And I just thought, I don't know, that box in midfield, I'm thinking, I'm sure we've tried this type of stuff before and it hasn't worked. And he keeps saying to us he's going back to basics in terms of simplifying the game. And I always felt that would be a good bridge for our players to kind of survive at this level as such. Don't overcomplicate it, simplify it, and put the other teams under pressure. And I thought, if you're going to play that box four, why are they then hit massive diags? The only tactical kind of like play I could really identify initially in that first half was just big diags, as if you were trying to get O'Brien at right wing and beating Kirkes in the air and then working from there. And I'm thinking, Smodic and Azaz, and, you know, you think about Smodic, if you get him in around the goal, he's a goal threat. Azaz has got his move because at Middlesbrough, he's not a type of player who dominates for 90 minutes, but he influences the game. He absolutely does. That's why his stats were so high. That's why Southampton paid the £12 million for him, to get him in. So get those guys comfortably on the ball. But if you're hitting big diags, all they're looking for then are knockdowns. I would never think that them players are about getting on the end of knockdown. So no, I looked at it and I think sometimes games can not go the way you plan them as a coach. I understand that completely.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at that and thinking that doesn't even look or feel right. Yeah.
Because then, like on the rare occasions in that first half, when they got into the shape you suspect they sort of envisaged, where like Manning's high on one side, O'Brien's high on the other, Azaz and Smodics are inside, Knight and Cullen are on the ball in midfield, and you would think, okay, this is like the template. This is where the whistle is blown in training, and we said, right, we're in shape, go.
Yeah.
It was just like no one moved. They all felt like they were 20 yards away from each other, and I honestly could sense Hungary in their 5-4-1 going.
Yeah, that's the key point. You say no one moved, and you were referencing us, but the key point is no one moved for Hungary.
They didn't need
because
to.
Didn't need to. They were just collecting. You say, oh, you're doing all that. It's all that stuff in front of us.
Yeah.
You do it. You're not moving us out of position. We're not fearful of not being able to block passing channels. We're just set. Okay, are you ready to go for it? We're ready for it. It's like someone trying to throw a punch and they just got the perfect kind of blocking up. They were just hitting the pads or the gloves or whatever. But
yeah.
No, it was just, oh no, it's so disappointing.
Yeah. So like, what's the ideal there, or what do you do? Like, that's a big problem to try and sort out. We've never cut teams open with passing over the last couple of years. That's almost the Kenny experiment has kind of demonstrated that in a big way. Like, I was looking at it and I could diagnose the problem like I just have there, but I didn't have the solution. I didn't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I mean, you are looking at scenarios where I did feel when I was looking at that first half, which I watched back again today, I did think that the centre halves, whoever they were, whether it was a 3 or a 2 at any stage, I did feel you had opportunities to play passes into Smodic and Azaz if you were brave enough to try and break lines. I do think they're there.
Okay.
But maybe a nervousness and maybe you're affected by the fact that you're 2-0 down at that stage and you're like, I can't risk losing the ball. It looked like because of their shape, Hungary, that any time we did lose the ball, they were out. It wasn't a case of like, we could stop them midfield. They comfortably got the ball into 10 and then they were playing wide and then they were attacking the box. So maybe there's a nervousness about it, but you can't have that. You've got to be more strong-minded than that. I think they'll look at it now. They'll review the game, that first half performance. I know Heimer's going to come out and say about, listen, we're not going to focus on the negatives. You have to focus on the negatives because that's not good enough. In any other game, we lose that. And our World Cup campaign is hanging by a thread then because it's only in the mistakes, it's only the 10-man in the second half that really allows us to kind of get back into it. We'll say we forced the issue, but the reality is that Hungary narrowed up. Literally, they actually up 2-0. They kind of changed, didn't they? They felt like we'd be able to defend this.
Time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they did. So they allowed us to get a bit more momentum. Obviously, the sending off changes that, and we were just, at will really crossing balls into the box because we were unopposed. They were narrowing up. They were giving us those wide areas. So it wasn't by design or great tactical coaching that we kind of got those opportunities. It was by circumstance.
Yeah. Would you give the team credit though for saying, okay, you're giving us the wings, we're just going to adapt to that. We're going to shell in 40 crosses and attack them. I kind of thought, fair enough, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I've no real issue with it. My concern would be that whilst we were doing that, and we've got that numerical advantage with them down to 10 men, is that they still counted through us and got shots in that second half. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how is this happening? It's bad enough with 11 men against 11, and you still can't close that back door. So that would be a worry for me in terms of that. And also, I know the goalkeeper made a couple of saves and stuff, but it was literally felt like the last attack that we eventually got the equaliser, even though we had a whole half virtually with 10 men playing against us. So, yeah, I fully understand and take the positives. And if you can get that win, it's 4 points. I think advantage is certainly with Hungary in terms of having the home game now, if that's the head-to-head we were looking at. But I just feel that I genuinely believed, and not just through hope, I believe this, that we'd be more further down the line in terms of how we're trying to play and how effective we would be doing it and how consistent we would be doing it. And that first half and even the second half, because it felt chaotic. And I know you at times in those games you want it to be like that to make it hard for the opposition, but the substitutions felt chaotic. If you're going to put those balls in a box, get Eder on quicker, get him on earlier then. But also there was about 3 occasions, Joe, where Eder does come on and he was crossing the ball. He was out in a wide position crossing the ball, and I'm going, this is so off the cuff.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. Because I can't argue with that. I did, sometimes though, when there's crosses going in and the defence are winning them all, generally, they're almost enjoying heading.
Yeah, you do. You have those moments, yeah.
I have to say, in the stadium and the crowd were so brilliant, I really felt, to Ireland's credit, they were really attacking those balls and they were getting on second balls and they were keeping crosses alive. And, Nathan Collins had a head over on 64 minutes. The Jack Taylor volley 3-4 minutes later, couldn't keep it down. Azaz header, great save. Ogbene had a volley again from guys keeping the ball alive. Ferguson's goal is, Smodix keeps it alive after keeper flaps. What I did feel was there was no imagination to it, obviously, the crosses. But it felt threatening. It felt, okay, this is worth pursuing. And I would give the team huge credit for numbers in the box and not just waiting for someone else to win a ball. They did really go at it.
Oh yeah.
So there was a bit of steel there, which maybe we haven't always seen. Yeah,
no, I felt that period was at the start of that second half, and then when Evan got the goal, I felt for about 10 minutes, I thought, oh, we're going to get a quick equaliser here, and this game's here to be won now. That was the frustration then, is that there was about a 10-15 minute period where we kind of like were blowing and we lost all energy. And I can understand that because you're going for it and the kind of the excitement as such. But I felt more of that was akin to the fact that we didn't really keep the pressure ring fenced, where they couldn't get out. They could get out too easily. There was a couple of times where, do you remember that little play by Szoboszlai?
It's so good.
He runs round past Knight and you're thinking, it's brilliant from their perspective. But from ours, with an extra man, it's shocking.
Yeah,
that's not good enough. So you want to keep that pressure on. And I knew there was always going to be that kind of last 10 minutes type of feel where it was going to happen, because Hungary at that stage then, as much as you're enjoying it, you are looking at the clock, you're looking up all the time, you're saying to the ref, how long, ref? How long, ref? And they get deeper and deeper. So you kind of like, you just throw everything at it. But I thought it would be, after getting that equaliser in that 10 minutes where I thought we were really good in terms of putting them under pressure, I thought it'd be more sustained than that.
It's so funny that when you talk about that 1-2 Szoboszlai, who it's amazing to see players like that at a different level. I mean, he looked 15 and they looked 14. It was just that kind of thing. But because Knight was gesturing to the people outside him, you press. He actually puts his hands out as if, come on, press, press, press. And the ball goes to Szoboszlai. And just the intelligence that he's probably heard Knight screaming to press. He can sense Knight's body language. And like his heart rate's 50. And he's like, 1-2, around you. Yeah. See you later. It was a real moment of levels, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's those type of players at that level that have that kind of where although it's so chaotic, everything, how loud it is, that everything just slows down to them. They're just saying, okay, so I know you night will have researched you, will have watched you. I know what you've done in the game. You come tearing out because your game is about tenacity, about closing down. But if you're doing that, I can see that you've left a space behind. You know, you can just see it in those type of players. And that's what's so unnerving when you come up against players where you think, I've got him here. And then suddenly they do something. You think, how'd you do that? Yeah. It's like those type of scenarios there. But yeah, I do give the players great credit in terms of coming back. And if the bottom line says you're 2-0 down at home in a World Cup qualifier against your main rivals, but you come back to 2-2, then you have to give it. But at the same time there, when you dissect it and get some context, there are some levelers as to why we were able to do that. A terrible goalkeeper spill early on in the second half when their manager and their player, Szoboszlai, would have been saying, keep it tight for 10 minutes in the second half. The crowd will lose their energy, but they didn't. They energized them by getting that goal. And then, of course, the forward getting sent off. I mean, he was so frustrated with the referee not giving him anything in terms of how physical we were all throughout the first half. So you knew it was going to happen. So fair play to the players for keeping at him to make him react like that. But they were the kind of mitigating circumstances.
Yeah. And they're big pieces of mitigation.
They are.
So obviously, look, Armenia are such a different challenge. Portugal is such a different challenge. Skip ahead for a second. Let's imagine a world where Ireland and Hungary take 6 points off Armenia. And I think this is probably unlikely, but Portugal win all 4 against Ireland home and away and Hungary home and away. You just feel something will happen there, possibly. But so say we're at that point and it's effectively a playoff, a final in Budapest. What team does Hallgrimsson pick? What changes would he have looked at from Saturday and said, that didn't work? Or would he go with the same team? Or what do you think?
It's so difficult because that we've emphasised a campaign and that last game is usually 14 months away. Yeah. This campaign's over in 10 weeks. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I don't even know if Troy Parrott's back. I'm not sure he is.
There's a lot of doubt about whether he will be at this stage, which is so frustrating. Whether or not he'd have picked him, I don't know. But the fact he's in such good goal scoring form and has been for the last couple of seasons. But there are positives to take out of it. I definitely felt that Ferguson looks really good. He looks well rested. I think he was starved of good quality ball. So I do feel that I genuinely don't put this campaign beyond these players now. I absolutely don't. It's just my frustration and kind of bordering anger was the fact that they are capable of so much more than they showed us. I genuinely believe that. That's why I am so kind of like hard on them, is because I feel you are better than you showed there. And I don't know why you haven't showed that. That you're not, that's not a rookie team anymore. They've been in scenarios now. The manager said that they're going to be fully aligned to the tactics. I'm not sure they are. And that's a frustration as well. And even that, Joe, in terms of the big build up to this game, because we've highlighted this was the game and in the crunch one, as you referenced in Budapest at the end of the campaign, is that we've had a long build up to this in terms of knowing that they were the key games as soon as the draw was made. And yet, Heimir said in the week, in the build up, he goes, I've seen players that really caught my eye in training, made me change my mind. I'm thinking, change your mind from training performances. It's just, I'm thinking, this doesn't sound right either, because football, and I've said this in my article, football's full of players who are brilliant in training. You've got to get the ones who are brilliant on match night. They're the ones, that they can bring it forward. And I'm thinking, you surely had a plan in mind with the players available to you. Maybe Parrott's injury changed it slightly, but surely no one's doing something in training a couple of days before the game that makes you think they're going to play, or I'm going to change it now. Because that's not joined up thinking. And I'm looking at that thinking, maybe I'm making a big deal out of it. Maybe there was something lost in translation in terms of language barrier. I don't know, but he is articulate enough to know what he's saying. But that did make me think, surely you knew what the plan was going into this game.
Mm. So in terms of team changes, hard to say, and there's bigger issues at play, is your sense? Yeah,
listen, in terms of, they all felt really good about themselves, and that can happen. And I've said this before, that you sense when it's your time. I know that sounds kind of silly, but when you're in the scenario, like we sensed for that World Cup, we're in such a good place here. We're going to qualify, even though we had like really tough teams in that league with Portugal and Holland. We felt, because we'd fallen at the very, very last hurdle in the campaign before, we felt, now this was our time. And I know these players haven't been to the last hurdle. More often than not, the campaigns have been over at the first hurdle. But I did believe them, and I did kind of like sense that they felt they were ready. And I just feel that this may well have knocked them back a bit. I hope that they have the mental strength to say, no, it was just a bad 45 minutes. Let's really focus on the second 45 minutes and just say that, listen, as much as it looked like we were out, we have got a lifeline, but you've got to make that point that they salvaged. That has to count for something now going into the next games.
And maybe it does, maybe that's there's something legitimate about telling themselves that story that 2-3 years ago, we're never coming back from 2-0. Look what we've done. There's something here. It was so striking because on the RTE television coverage, like in the 10 minutes before kickoff, there's a segment with Nathan Collins interviewed earlier in the week by Tony O'Donoghue. And, the whole country's sitting down at this stage. And I wrote it down because it jumped off the television screen. He said, something's brewing here. The way we're training, the way we're talking.
Yeah.
And then boom.
Yeah.
So
do you know what's? Do you know the only thing I will say about that, and I'm so guilty of it when I write my article, is that I kind of listen to the kind of sound bites coming out of it, and I really focus on what the managers are saying, like say, because they're more experienced in terms of their age, whether it's Kenny or Heimir. And I kind of give the players a pass because I look back to maybe what was I saying at 23 or 24? You know what I mean? I wasn't kind of going, you're not a Grizzly season campaigner that side. You're full of enthusiasm. And so it is remarkable that at 24 that he's a Premier League captain, an international captain, because that's so impressive. I don't think any of our iconic captains that we've had at Premier League level would have been captains at 24. So it says a lot about him, but we have to remember that he's still so young. You know what I mean? And I don't think he quite knows the role yet. I don't think he does. And I think ultimately the only advice I'd give to him as a captain is that lead by example. Make sure that your game is error-free and then try and kind of like influence the players around you. And I just think at times, in a way that you don't really see for Brentford, because I've watched a lot of him on Premier Sports and covered him a lot, he's assured, he's composed, don't really make the mistakes that we saw early on in his career, but he's making them for Ireland still. And I don't know why he's doing that, because even that headed chance that could have made it 2-0 at the time, just before the second goal, he shouldn't be getting beaten by a cross from that distance. He just shouldn't be. He shouldn't be losing the first contact on the chance for Styles at the edge of the box either. He should be more dominant, and normally is. So I think we kind of have to cut him a little bit of slack as such, but at the same time, just kind of hope that someone's saying to him, make sure your game is perfect, because that's what you need from a captain. You can't be the one where the players are turning around and saying, well, you're making the mistakes.
Okay, Gary, absolutely brilliant. We're alive just, I think, is the conclusion. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. As Dan said, we're battered but not broken.
Cheers.